What if I told you that everything you see around you, every star, every planet, every single particle, every force that holds it all together, what if it's all just different expressions of one single underlying field? It's an idea that is so simple, but at the same time, so incredibly radical, and it might just change how we see everything. Let's get into it.
Okay, so to even begin to wrap our heads around that, we have to start with a really basic question, one that sits right at the heart of physics. What actually is a vacuum? I mean, what's going on in the absolute, total emptiness between the atoms, between the galaxies? Now, if you've watched any science shows, you've probably heard this story, right? That empty space isn't empty at all. It's this bubbling, chaotic foam of virtual particles and their antimatter partners, constantly flashing into reality and disappearing again. It's a wild image, super compelling, but what if it's more of a convenient story than what's really happening?
So let's explore a different story, a completely different tale, one that doesn't just throw out all the physics we know, but completely reframes how we think about it.
And listen, this isn't just some fringe idea. The great Richard Feynman himself, one of the architects of quantum mechanics, basically warned us about this. He said virtual particles are part of the math. They're useful tools for our calculations, but they aren't necessarily real things. And that little warning, well, it cracks the door open to a whole new way of looking at the universe.
So here's the big difference. A framework that's been gaining traction, called Dynamic Vacuum Theory, or DVFT. It doesn't argue with the effects we see, it argues with the story we tell. Instead of that chaotic foam of particles, DVFT says the vacuum is a single, continuous field. And those fluctuations we measure, they're not particles popping out of nowhere, they're just the natural vibrations, the hum of this one fundamental substance.
So, okay, if it's not particles, what is it? Well, it's time to meet the star of this news story, the one field that might just explain, well, everything.
This is it. This is the whole shebang right here. The theory proposes that all of reality can be described by this one mathematical object. Now, I know, it looks a little scary, but it's built from two surprisingly simple parts. You've got rho, which is basically the field's strength, and theta, which is its rhythm, or its phase. Let me break that down in a way that makes more sense. Let's just think of this field as a huge cosmic ocean. The amplitude, that rho part, is like the depth of the ocean. It's the underlying substance and strength that gives things mass. The phase, the theta part, is like the waves on that ocean's surface. It's the rhythm, the patterns, the behavior that generates all the forces we see. That's it. The universe is just an ocean with depth and waves.
Okay, so what's the big deal? What's the payoff for thinking this way? If this one field idea is right, what can it actually explain? Well, this is where it gets really, really cool. It offers these incredibly elegant solutions to some of the biggest head-scratchers in all of physics.
First up, the Holy Grail, unifying the forces. In this picture, the four fundamental forces, they stop being separate things. Gravity is just what we perceive when the field's phase curves on a massive scale. Electromagnetism, that's just organized waves in that same field. And the nuclear forces, the strong and the weak, they're just more complicated, tangled up knots in the exact same field. It's one substance, just behaving in four different ways.
And what about particles? Yep, same story. They're not these little fundamental billiard balls. A massless particle, like a photon, is just a simple ripple in the field's phase, a wave on our ocean. But a massive particle, like an electron, is a more stable, complex thing. Kind of a self-sustaining whirlpool, where the depth and the waves are locked together. Particles aren't separate things in the vacuum, they are the vacuum, just organized in a specific way.
And this is where the theory becomes a real game changer. It might just solve the whole dark universe problem without adding a single new thing. So dark matter, it suggests, isn't some exotic particle we have to hunt for. It's just an effect of the field's phase getting warped around galaxies, which perfectly mimics the gravity of extra mass. And dark energy? Not a mysterious force. It's just the baseline leftover energy of the field itself, pushing everything apart.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds like a beautiful story, a really neat idea, but does it connect to reality at all? How does it actually hold up against real observations?
Well, what's incredible is that this idea is strongly supported by one of the absolute pillars of quantum mechanics, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. That principle literally forbids a perfectly still, zero-energy state. It demands that the vacuum has to be active, that it has to fluctuate. So the DVFT isn't just making this up, it's providing the physical why for something quantum mechanics already told us had to be true.
And get this, the theory lines up shockingly well with hard data.
The weird way galaxies rotate, the thing that made us invent dark matter in the first place? DVFT predicts that from phase distortions alone. The heat map of the baby universe we see in the CMB, the math of this field naturally spits out the patterns we actually observe. Even those huge early galaxies the Webb telescope found, which shouldn't exist according to old models, can be explained by the field getting organized super quickly after the Big Bang. It all just fits.
So we're left with this absolutely wild thought. This theory suggests that particles, forces, dark matter, dark energy, they aren't all separate items on a cosmic grocery list. They're just different behaviors, the vibrations, the knots, the waves, the curves of a single unified reality. And if that's true, it makes you wonder, what else about the universe have we completely misunderstood?